Welcome, everyone. My name is Professor Sterling Bone. I'm a professor in the Marketing and Strategy Department here at the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and I'm broadcasting live from Huntsman Hall for this exciting Power Up talk. And we're grateful to have Krystan Resch from ZoomInfo, powered by Discover.org. Krystan is the Senior Director of Partnerships at ZoomInfo and has done an amazing career at ZoomInfo. And we were talking about multiple stories of multiple careers that she's had, that she's been 8 years at ZoomInfo in variety of roles, including sales, marketing, customer success, customer experience, and now in her role of partnerships. And welcome, Krystan. We're glad to have you here today.
Hi, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Krystan is a graduate of the University of Oregon, and she'll tell probably a little bit about her background as she goes into her remarks, but we're excited that we have at Utah State's Huntsman School in partnership with ZoomInfo, powered by Discover.org. I direct the Pro Sales program and all things sales here at the Huntsman School. And we're grateful for Krystan and her team for providing our team access to incredible tools, data, and insights to make our students much more strategic in their account development. So Krystan, we're excited to hear from you. And let me remind the students that the format and our guests that the format for this talk is you can see here on the live chat screen, you can submit your questions. We welcome your questions. We'll have a time for Q&A, and we'd love to field the questions that you have, as well as these series of Power Up and other podcasts are available anytime on our John M. Huntsman School YouTube channel. So take advantage of these great resources. Well, Krystan, they've come to hear from you, so I'm going to turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yes, today, one of the things I want to talk to you guys about is this concept of business being a team sport. And this is something, while I visited your team, your students and everyone there back in February, we talked about this a little bit. But when we think about business, it's very much a collaborative function. Right. I also liken it sometimes to an organism. It has to have other cells and everything has its role in order for this thing to function. A clock is another great analogy, right? So sports is just one way to think of this. There's a lot of different ways to think about business, but it's really the interconnectivity and the communication between individuals that is defining how businesses function. And then you've got processes, and then you've got products, and you've got all these other things that layer into it. But that's really the core of how businesses function and work. So I grew up playing a lot of sports, as you guys can see from just even looking me up on LinkedIn. I'm an avid sports fan. So I'm not quite a Packers fan. I know you guys have a quarterback heading over to the Packers. I'm actually a Niners fan. So, but you know, Justin Herbert, I'm a University of Oregon graduate. He's on his way down to San Diego. I'm going to have a lot of teams to root for this year. So I don't mind rooting for your Packers, or for the Packers, at least while they're not playing the 49ers. I tell Seahawks fans the same thing. So with all that being said, when I think about sports and business being likened together, I usually think about basketball, because basketball was my number one passion. It was the thing I played growing up all the way through high school. And it was one of those things that really helped me understand the concept of fundamentals. I think that's the first time you start learning, like, what are your fundamentals, right? And so one of the first things I ever learned playing basketball was acronyms to remember processes. And so there's a ton of acronyms out there in the business world. Every company you work at, you're going to get inundated with their own acronyms and their processes and things like that. But when I think back to my early years in playing basketball, the one that always stuck with me was BEEF. And I don't know if anybody's ever heard of BEEF, but it's balance. You got your elbow up, right? Elbow is E, eyes, follow through. BEEF. You got to have your balance, elbow, eyes, follow through every shot. And it's this repetition. And the more you practice it, and the more that you know how to get yourself settled, to find your balance, how to get to that place where your focus is there, it's dialed in, your eyes are on the prize, and then you follow through with your actions. That's something that carries through in everything you do, even in the business world today. If you go into a situation and you're not feeling emotionally stable, for instance, or you're not focused on what your objective is, or how you're going to achieve your objective, or following through in achieving your objective, all of those things stand true. So I think about this as I started to go through college, and I actually worked for sports. I was a student sports trainer for the Oregon football team for a couple years. And you start to learn and you see how even at the larger organized sports, the teams have to work together, but there's an entire support system behind them. The doctors, the trainers, the coaching staff, the equipment managers, all of this staff is behind making a successful team function. And so the same is true, the bigger a business gets, that sales team or that revenue team, as we like to look at them, that's the marketing team or the sales team combined together, that growth team, they're responsible truly for the engagement, right? They're the ones out there playing the game every day. But for the rest of the background staff, they have just as much time invested in the outcome of that game. Those trainers have just as much invested in the outcome of the game, because that means they got their players to an optimal place to play that game, right? So I think of that as like our operational staff. It's the same idea. So as we start thinking about some of the concepts of, how does kind of sports translate into business, I do like to think about it and breaking it down into those kind of functional teams. So you do have your marketing team, right? Those are the ones out there, and they're getting you the hype. They're getting everybody excited for the game coming up, right? They want you to know that we're playing our rival, or we've got this thing that's awesome that you're going to want to see. It's our star quarterback, for instance, right? You're going to want to come and see this thing, this person, or this play. Then you've got your staff that's getting everybody to the game, right? So these are the SDRs. These are the folks that are getting everyone to come and enjoy the thing that we're about to experience. So they're your more grassroots, if you will, hype man, right? So they're the guy who's in the parking lot tailgating, who's super excited, who's the one who's bringing his buddies in. He's the one who's got the extra tickets to bring in the guy who's never played before, right? That's where we start to see that kind of additional staff, that additional, piece come in. And then you've got the players, right? And they're the ones who are usually the sales team. They're your experts in your product or your service. They're the ones who can articulate how you're going to benefit from working with their company, right? They're the reason you are going to initially enjoy your experience, right? But as you start to go through game one, and let's say we win, great, that's a great, wonderful feeling. And sometimes you're going to lose. Not so great of a feeling. But when you think about it, I think Michael Jordan said it the best. And the fact is, Kobe and LeBron and all of them, after, they're all going to go back to Jordan and say, yep, Jordan said it. He says you have to have short-term memory, right? If you're going to be a fantastic athlete or an exceptional athlete, or even just an exceptional human being, we really have to have short-term memory. If you miss a shot, you lose a game, something doesn't go your way, you have to forget about it and just try it again. And I think that stands true for sales time and time again. And so as we get into this phase of the sales folks and they're, doing their engagement, there is a charisma in sales that is really important. There's an authenticity that is really important, right? You can't necessarily have someone like, Yao Ming going down the court and, he's going down and he's ball handling the same way that Steph Curry or Allen Iverson does. That's not authentic to how Yao Ming plays basketball, right? But if you're going to watch him post up, drop his foot, and put up a sky hook, that's how Yao Ming plays basketball. That's not how Iverson plays basketball, right? So everybody has their own style. And I think that's the most important thing for sales folks to remember is just like every athlete, they've got their strengths, you've got your weaknesses. Play to your strengths, be aware of your weaknesses. And then as you get to the kind of retention side of the world, this is where your coaching staff, this is where your management, this is where the operations teams, while important the entire time to make sure those operations and the game goes off without a hitch, as you get into this next leg of keeping your customer, that's getting people to the next game even when you lost, right? That's still getting people to be excited for the next game, even if you've won the last 4 in a row, right? So It's this idea of recruiting for the next year. Students might phase out and go to the next level, right? I need to go and recruit. I need to make sure that I've got the right people in place. And so you're constantly building and melding this team of star athletes or key A players. But those A players are not just the athletes, it's the coaching staff, right? I like to also say that I think most of us would agree the Bulls were the Bulls, and the Bulls were amazing. Michael Jordan is amazing. Scottie Pippen is amazing. Rodman is the coolest basketball player I think anybody's ever seen, right? An incredible defender. But the way they work together is a direct reflection of Phil Jackson's coaching. Same idea, right? The coach is an exceptional coach. He was able to bring them together, identify their strengths, their weaknesses, and get them to play together. Run plays like the triangle offense that's going to allow them to open up the court and give Jordan that extra step for his pullback jumper, right? All those pieces become really important, but that's because Phil Jackson sees that and he's playing to that. Just like your strongest manager very well might find that they're giving accounts that are most valuable to some of their star players. And that can be really hard too, especially as a new sales rep. When you go in and you're surrounded by A players, it can feel kind of, scary, or, you might have a lack of confidence. But I think watching, somebody like Kobe or LeBron go into the NBA 18 years old and just having this undoubted confidence in themselves that they were going to be awesome is why they are awesome. And so translating that into how you approach your job, how you approach business, how you approach sales specifically, you don't want to be cocky so much as you want to be confident. And so finding that fine balance of what's authentic to you and then being able to really convey that to somebody is super important. And so as you guys can see, as I talk, I tell a story about kind of who I am, where I come from, what I care about. I couldn't talk about basketball. I couldn't talk about sports if I didn't actually care about it and really enjoy watching them or experience them or playing them myself, right? So the analogies I use might not work for you, but I suggest that you find something that really kind of strikes a chord in you, and you can liken it to how business functions. So for Zoom Info, we're a go-to-market engine, right? We are this marketing engine. We are the ops in this, the revenue ops engine, and then we are the sales engine. We fuel all of that with our data because we're a data company. We can't make salespeople sell better in terms of how they sell or what they're selling, right? But we can make them better at how they're selling what they're selling. We can give them more intel. We can give them more timely information. We can make sure they have the phone number, the email, the means to engage. And so we look at this as not only are we a team internally, but we are helping give the Gatorade of the world, right, out to all the sports teams that we're coaching or that we're supporting as the businesses that we work with. So Gatorade and data, I know that might be a weird analogy. It's probably the first time I've ever said that. So, some things just come out of your mouth authentically sometimes. But I do think that each company out there is starting to recognize, especially in this time of COVID, that you have to become really efficient. And so what that means is a lot of them are getting back in the gym, right? They're starting to look at their plays. They're starting to look at how they're operating, and they're becoming more efficient in how they operate. So instead of having 10 balls, maybe I only need one ball, but I need to be in the gym for 4.5 hours, right? So versus having maybe 10 people in the gym for an hour. So all of these types of things are shifting. And again, you can just find something that you can liken to think about, these metaphors that I'm speaking of. But I do think it's important to remember that, the collaboration and the communication aspect of a team is what will stand true in business as the core functionality before you ever have services or products or things to sell. If you don't know how to communicate your message and you don't know how to communicate with each other on how you're going to go to market, then it doesn't matter how cool your widget is, you probably won't sell very many of them. You could have the worst widget in the world, but if your messaging is good, you can still sell a really bad widget. So all of those things will stand true.
Thank you, Kristen. I'd like to dive a little deeper into the communication piece. As I read some of the research and some of just the thoughts that are coming out on LinkedIn, this is a time that companies need to over communicate. Can you speak in terms of how your team at ZoomInfo has adjusted their communication and how they're maintaining connection with one another?
Yeah. So I think something, and again, I'll liken this back to my experience in sports. Some of my best friends, some of the people I have the strongest relationships in my life with, are people I played sports with, because we were put in a stressful environment. We were really forced to communicate effectively in those moments, right? Pass me the ball, I'm open. But those types of things, you have to get really good at that quick, fast communication. And in business, that is also true. But most of us experience it in a workplace. And we were talking about this a little bit earlier today, but we are in a workplace where we are talking about each other's families and what's going on and how are you doing? What are you doing this weekend? And there's this constant quick communication of checking in on where each other are at as humans, because effectively humans are businesses, right? That's all we are. And so in this time of COVID, where communication has shifted dramatically to online communications, such as this Zoom call, we are in a place now where if we are not still practicing that communication on a regular basis, it can actually be really detrimental. And so what we found internally as a business is that by proactively putting forth activities for our employees to do together that are not just work-based activities. So happy hours or karaoke sessions. We did cooking classes. There was what was the other one? Pilates classes, all types of things that we've got going on appeal to everybody's personal side of who we are and who we enjoy being outside of work, but still give us that structure of communication and friendship that we might really be missing in these times where we're isolated and at home, where communication is really difficult. And so I know a lot of families specifically are trying to communicate with their loved ones and talk to people on FaceTime and whatnot on a regular basis. But I think there is another aspect of us outside of our families where most of us enjoy communication with strangers or with, our more affiliate based network, right? Our friends, if you will, that are maybe not somebody we talk to or confide to on a regular basis, but it's good to hear that outside perspective or to hear what they're going through to give yourself perspective. And so by doing a lot of this from looking at our team at ZoomInfo and saying, how can we be better for our employees' mental health? That was a big thing that we did. Also, big shout out to Slack, because Slack has been one of those things we are using all the time, because it's just an easy way to communicate and function at scale, but it also allows us to have some fun. So there's just enough cool little things in there that you can do that it makes somebody laugh during the day or put a smile on somebody's face with a funny emoji or a GIF or something like that. So the other mediums of communication like that are also really powerful.
Very good. Thank you. I've got a question from one of our amazing Huntsman students, a pro sales student, Huntsman Scholar, Leadership Fellow. He is an all-star in his own right. From Andrew Marino. He must be a Boston Celtics fan, because he's asking, how does the sales team work the most effectively, like the Big Five in Boston a few years back?
Good question, actually. So I think with the Big Five, they all had their strengths in terms of kind of their power move that dominated the floor, right? So they were very aware of their space. And when you have that many players on the court that all just are phenomenal in their own right, like you watch KG when he was playing, before Boston, and then you see him at Boston. KG's game changed significantly when he got to Boston. Some of that is a direct reflection of his coaching, right? But on the other side of that, it was a reflection of the players he was with. And so same with Ray Rice, you see his game starts to expand. And so I think for them, they all understood their strengths on the floor and then where they could pull, apart in terms of, finding their special spots on the floor, but that always was constantly in a shifting dynamic. And sales is the same way. I like to think of this as like your SDR, your sales, executive, and then your sales manager, right? if you think of them as even like the big three in Miami back in the day, right? Those guys, same idea. They know where their strengths and their weaknesses is. As an SDR, my strength is getting people on the phone, communicating quick value, having a story to tell, being excited, being authentic right out of the gate, and being creative enough to make that other person on the phone go, oh, it feels like you know what I care about. Yes, I want to learn more. As an SDR, that should be your absolute strength. If you are just developing sales, those are the key factors you absolutely need to have in order to get somebody in that initial engagement phase. And then as you're a sales executive, I might share some traits with the SDR because likely I came from that world, but I've also evolved some of my traits. So I might be stronger in storytelling and in-depth storytelling or multiple storyline storytelling, right? When I am a sales executive. And then as a sales manager, it could be that I have enough experience now that my strength is not only storytelling like my sales executive, but I can now use customer voice to say, here's how others have done it. Here's what we've seen. Here's what success can look like for your business. And that collective team is now selling the dream, right, of what to this customer, what their world could be like if they bought our product or our solution. And so I think everybody shares, just like the teams and the athletes on the court, they can all dribble, they can all shoot, they can all, rebound. They all have core fundamentals, but how they exhibit those fundamentals and at which time they exhibit those, that's really where that collaboration piece comes into play for success.
I really like that, Krystan, because I think it's a good reminder to our students, particularly now as we're in kind of a summer time frame. Obviously, life is different with COVID. This is a time to really sharpen fundamentals, right? And to really grow in that fundamental training, because regardless of what team you're playing on in the business world, you're going to need to have those fundamentals. Another question that just came in as what recommendations do you have for managers or management to allow individual players to contribute and shine while also bringing them together cohesively as a team, right? So kind of like to that Jordan, and other star players, how do you allow the individual to shine, but also build cohesion with that team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to establish on the team a way to acknowledge excellence, and then also a way to critique in a way that isn't criticizing. And so one of the main things that, they did with Jordan is that they allowed him to be Jordan, right? They didn't try to change who Jordan was. But Jordan also had to respect that he's not the end all see all, right? He needed to rely on his other role players in order to have the success he was having. That's also how the game works, right? So lucky for Jordan, he's forced into the situation. He has to learn the situation or learn how to collaborate. As sales reps, right? Sometimes we can be the lone wolf is a persona that is out there, right? And there are going to be individuals who very much are the lone wolf, and that's okay. For them to thrive, they thrive while they're on their own. It's okay to support that. It's great to celebrate that. But it's also good to continually introduce to them other ways that even though they're a lone wolf persona, the things they're doing can help benefit the others in the group because others might learn from them. And sometimes it's not learning just what they did, but what not to do. So there's a lot of different things that can get pulled from that. But I think as a manager, it's important to acknowledge kind of who everyone is and where their roles really lie. And not just for me to acknowledge them, but for them to acknowledge it themselves. So we have one individual at our company and he is the lone wolf. You ask him, he's the lone wolf. And if you meet him once, you're like, yep, he's the lone wolf. It's really easy to know this guy operates on his own terms. He goes to beats to his own drum. It's just how he functions. But also he is very mindful that that's my mindset and that's who I am. So when he has great success, he'll share how he had that great success. And if he has a great failure or even a minimal failure, he's not ashamed to share that failure, to say, hey, I did this. I was out, kind of going rogue and I tried this and it didn't work. So maybe we should not try that at scale, right? And giving that kind of feedback. So it's very much comes from a place of self-awareness as a manager, but also creating self-awareness in your players. So that way they understand, what is my role? Where do I shine? How do I shine? And if I'm not, is it okay for me to share that I'm not doing great right now? Right. So if Jordan's going out and he's like, man, I am just not knocking down shots right now, I'm going to keep shooting, but Scotty's on, I'm going to be feeding Scotty for the next couple minutes. Right. Or, Kerr is on fire. Kukoc is just going off. I'm going to start feeding these guys. I've been watching The Last Dance, clearly, you guys can tell. So the Bulls are in my brain for like all of this week with that wrapping up. But the idea is the same, right? So Absolutely. You're playing to each other's strengths.
And I really love the call out and shout out for self-awareness, right? Something that we hear regularly with a lot of our recruiting partners is that's an attribute that they would love to see more in this generation of students, is more self-awareness. Another question, what happens if you're not on the Bulls and you're stuck on an underdeveloped or underperforming team? Yep. How would you lift up your teammates to their potential?
Yeah, I think it's good to set expectations and goals, right? That's really where this comes into. I might be the biggest basketball fan on the face of the earth, right? But I am 5'1" and I am 130 pounds. There is no chance that I'm going to go out there and do a slam dunk, right? That is an expectation that is just not achievable based off of pure physics alone, right? Gravity is not in my favor on this. Height is not in my favor on this. Anatomy is not in my favor on this, right? None of those aspects are going to allow me to do that. But if I change my expectation of what is a dunk me jumping off the ground and dunking the ball? If so, that's an expectation I probably can't meet. But if a dunk is me getting a really sweet trampoline and figuring out the best way to jump off that trampoline, do a spin, and make that dunk, then I absolutely can dunk a basketball. So changing the expectation around what is success is, I think, really important, and establishing that across the group as a whole. So I might be on the worst team in the league. It might be that we just want to make 500 this year. We just want to get to the playoffs. We don't even, if we get through the first round of the playoffs, awesome. If we get to the semifinals, if we get to the finals, awesome. And then there's teams out there that are the Warriors or, the Lakers this year, or maybe, I'm a Blazers fan, so I'll never say the Lakers were set up to win a championship, right? But being a LeBron fan, I'll give him credit where credit's due. He's building a great team. Their goal a couple years ago was make 500. Their goal last year was make the playoffs, and they didn't get there. And now we're going to get to the playoffs and we're going to win the championship. All along the while, they've been assembling a team. That recruiting function, right? They're bringing in more players. They're recognizing their weaknesses. They're fixing those weaknesses. So I think, again, establishing your expectations and just working towards those goals. You can have a greater goal in mind, but you have to have the right expectations beforehand in order to achieve it.
Thank you. And I want to turn the topic a little bit differently here, and very thoughtful question from Kylie, who's asking that employees' mental health is very important to get work done, right? This is a critical aspect of any company. Do personal mental activities outside of workplace make a difference in today's companies functioning well and performing well?
Absolutely. I would say pre-COVID and post-COVID, very, very important. There's always this concept of a work-life balance. And I'm a number one, I am a workaholic. I'm the first person to say it. I love to work. And that's what it is. It's a passion for me. I really enjoy what I do. But even with enjoying what I do and have done this for 8 years and I haven't let up, I work as hard as I did back then when there was just 40 of us and we weren't 1,000 plus, size company. But you have to love what you're doing. And so I think it's not just so much of a work-life balance, but it's what do you love and what do you need to do, or what things don't you like to do that still have to get done type of balance. So there's going to be things in work where you're like, man, I really don't want to do those emails, or I really don't want to do that follow-up phone call, right? But I really get excited when I do talk to somebody on the phone. So finding that balance, that in itself is a mental state that has to be recognized while you're working. Because if everything you're doing every day doesn't feel good, then you're not going to feel good about the work you're doing. And that will translate into your outside life. And the same is true with your outside life translating back into your work life. There's not a hard wall. You don't leave work and turn into another person completely when you leave work. And the same is true. You don't drop who you are as a mom or a dad or as a brother or a sister or, a friend or, a man or a woman or, whichever gender you identify as, even as the minute you walk in the door, you don't change. You are you the minute you come into work, right? And so knowing who you are, being comfortable with who you are, doing things that make you happy outside of work, whether that means going for a bike ride or, visiting, a relative, even if you can't talk to them, you can see them through the front yard, going and doing something for your community, volunteering. Sometimes I like to go shopping, things like that. Like I've had to adjust those things that I like to do, but those are the things that keep me mentally happy. And so, keeping that concept of mental happiness is not black and white. Work and life outside of work is not black and white, but finding the balance of where am I feeling like I'm happy and I'm succeeding, and what am I doing when I feel that way versus when I don't feel that way? What are the things that are happening? And can I find a way to change the things I don't like, all the while being accepting of the fact that the things I do like might also change. I think that's that mental state where you start to realize like these things are very important, but they all are reliant upon each other.
Krystan, thank you. I think I needed that. Hopefully our students and other guests are feeling what I'm feeling. And I appreciate just the authenticity and just the genuine nature that you've treated this topic. Thank you for being here with us. We are so grateful for you and for all of those that have joined us on this Power Up series. I've been inspired. I'm feeling powered up. I feel like I need to go to the gym and work on fundamentals and just take advantage of the opportunity that is ours right now, right? And to be able to really maximize this time and this opportunity. And you've inspired me and others to do that. So thank you, Krystan.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I just want to remind, you're welcome, and we'll have you back many, many times again. I just want to remind our students and all of our guests that this is, again, a continuation of a Power Up series that will continue throughout the summer and hopefully even into the next year. There's lots of additional content that will be coming online on the Huntsman YouTube channel. Our next Power Up series is scheduled for May 29th. So stay tuned. Watch your Huntsman posts and Huntsman calendar for additional information on upcoming talks, and regularly tune in the Huntsman YouTube channel for new content. Thank you, Krystan Resch from ZoomInfo, powered by Discover.org. We appreciate your insights, and thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day.